Nithyanandam, guys! Welcome back to my page. If you haven't yet liked my page, make sure to do so you don't miss out on any of my live video content or my posts if you're interested in following my life or learning more about conscious living. So today I'm going to discuss kind of some daily spiritual advice, the daily message that I received that I want to pass on to you guys. This was actually something which came up yesterday, but I didn't get a chance to make a video on it yet. And it's one of, I think, the coolest things to really ponder on, what my guru Swamiji calls brain candy, like something which is just really fun to think about and fun to discuss and debate. And that is, what is the root of all incompletion? Now, when I say incompletion, if you're not familiar with this term, this is a term which is used actually in the Vedas and Agamas in Hinduism, and what Swamiji is reviving the technique for, the completion process. And what incompletion means is basically anything which happened in your past, it still lingers in your present, and it prevents your future from being what you want it to be. So this is usually any event, situation, feeling, which we cognize as negative, painful, traumatic, incidents like this that trigger us and basically make us react instead of act. So it's when we're coming from that space of reaction that we have pain and suffering happen in our life, right? So what is the root of all incompletions? So Swamiji so beautifully was sharing, it was actually an older satsang, which we got to watch yesterday. But in it he said, the root of all incompletions is the cognitions coming from what is I or mine. So basically what he said is what we cognize as ours, what you cognize as yours is how you define you. So, for example, even your personality, you cognize as yours. I am, empathetic. I am excited. I am sometimes depressed. I am extremely emotional. What else? Like items that you might have, relationships you might have. I am a sister. I am a mother. I am a good friend. All of these things are what we cognize as ours. We actually hold them in our space like they are a possession, like they're something which we actually own and hold on to. Now, the problem with this is that we start to only consider our identity. We start to fully identify ourselves with those things instead of with our innate self or being. So all of the different external factors, how people see us, how we see ourselves, the titles we give each other, the titles we give ourselves, all of these different labels, we start to cognize as us, when in reality that isn't us. That's not who we are in essence. That is not our true self. And the more and more that we cognize ourselves with those external things, with those patterns, with those external factors, that's what causes pain and suffering and confusion in our being. Because our being knows that's not me. But some part of us has attached ourselves to this. So let me give you guys an example. So I've always considered myself an extremely empathetic person. Means I've been extremely emotionally sensitive to the world around me, and especially people in relationships. So even if I see someone else cry, I'll start to cry, like that kind of a thing, even if I don't know them. So this is something which I always cognized as me. This is my identity. I am an extremely empathetic person. Now, the problem comes when you start to evolve, or you start to even realize that you are much more than just that title or just that personality trait, which I started to realize. But then the ego starts to panic. And all of that thing which we attach our identity to, which we call the ego, start to freak out, be in total fear, and start to think, feel like it's dying, because it is. And a part of it is dying. The less and less we give attachment to those traits, those outside qualities. And basically we start to panic. And that's why so much suffering happens. Because then whenever that identity is called into question, whether from another person, from ourself, whether, somebody says, you don't even care, you're not even sensitive, like you're so mean. If somebody were to have said that to me a few years ago, I lose it. I would totally freak out. And I would just be devastated, and I wouldn't even know what to do with myself, because I completely attached myself to that label, to that identity. And if somebody was seeing me as something different, it was like a complete identity crisis, pure panic. So like this, so many things in our life we attach ourselves to. And this can go even at a more, subtle level, like our possessions. If we lose our job, if we lose, our identity as a teacher or as a doctor or as a householder, as soon as that's gone, we don't know what to do with ourselves. But the highest reality is that none of those things are permanent. Everything is temporary, including this body, including our relationships, including our possessions. And so much suffering can come from attaching ourself and our identity to those things. And actually, Swamiji went on to say that the poor are those. The poorest man is one who has never experienced poverty before in his life. And this was so profound to me because actually, before I heard him say this, I felt like I had come to that conclusion almost through my own personal experience. I was raised for most of my childhood in a middle-class family. So I never had to think about money, and I was raised, it was pretty comfortable. It wasn't super, super rich, but it was very comfortable. I never had to think about food or clothes or things like that. But around junior high, my dad lost his job, and for the first time, it was like money was not there. And later on, my mom and dad got divorced, and when my mom was just a single mom supporting us, and she had a very low-wage job at the time, and we were just making ends meet, and it was like every month we had to figure out how we were going to pay the bills. But actually, looking back on that time in my life, it was hands down one of the biggest, most auspicious times of my life because it put so much perspective into me and into my life and into the world around me, and so much more awareness and gratitude for things that I do have and things that I did or didn't have at the time. And really, it was such a beautiful thing because what Swamiji said is when things are taken away from us, it's life giving us a chance to reinvent ourselves. And this was so true. I really, at that time, got to really see who I was, what really mattered to me, what I wanted my life to be. And for the first time, I had to question those things, and because everything wasn't just comfortable and given to me. And I think that's the gift of renouncing things in the world, whether it's a normal job, or whether it's a relationship, or whether it's even worldly possessions if you want to start living more minimally. What we call aparigraha in Hinduism, living a minimal lifestyle with minimal possessions. It's actually the ultimate liberation. And it's funny because we cognize removing things or from our life as a loss most of the time, right? We feel like we're losing something, we're losing ability, we're losing freedom. But in actuality, I've discovered personally at least, the more that we minimalize, the more liberated we become. Because then you realize how much of your day is thoughts and energy is spent wasted on stupid, trivial things, which is just completely unnecessary and not relevant to your true purpose in your day or life. I remember when I moved to Ecuador, this is the last thing I'll share with you guys. When I moved to Ecuador after high school, I was living in a little rural village in the mountains, and I was living literally out of a suitcase, right, because I had traveled. So I had very little clothes, very little anything with me, nothing fancy. I pretty much wore the same pants every day, the same jacket every day. I was always in a rain jacket, jeans or leggings, and a pair of hiking boots because I worked in the mountains. And really outdoorsy. And it was such a liberation for me because I had grown up in Southern California, the land of, materialism. And I was so consumed by what I would wear every day, how I would look every day, how I would do my hair and my makeup and look perfect and be trendy and have new clothes and keep up with all the trends. That's the culture I lived in. It was like the number one priority was clothing, literally. And when I moved to Ecuador, I saw what a liberation it was to just have 2 pairs of pants, 1 jacket, 3 shirts, Not even think what I put on in the morning, just as long as I'm clean, I put on my clothes and I go about my day. And I that was the first time in my life I actually started my spiritual journey. And I truly think it's because I was able to have so much of a liberation from those things that I actually had freedom, time, life, energy for the things that I wanted to explore, what mattered. Meditating, journaling, hiking, doing all these incredible life experiences. And it was such a freedom just to live so minimally. And even here, I'm actually living a life like this in many ways, especially compared to the outside world. I live very minimally, a very minimal space that we live in our room, very minimal clothing that we have compared to what I would probably have back home. You know, like not even thinking about what I'm going to eat. I eat the food that's given to me, and it's actually so much of a liberation. So it's just a really interesting topic that I wanted to kind of discuss with you guys, and definitely let me know your thoughts. I'll get back to you guys in the comments in the discussion. And I just wanted to share this little nugget of wisdom that my guru so gracefully delivered yesterday when I was listening to his satsang. So I hope that you guys got something from it, and if you want to know more, definitely feel free to ask questions or anything like that, and I'll get back to you guys. Nithyanandam!